Yo, what's shaking, everybody? It is another edition of the Orangebloods Modcast. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That's Jason Sukamel, Anwar Richardson, Alex Dunlap. Do all four of us an absolute solid. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Just do it now, right now. Hit that thumbs up button, and then you won't be bothered the rest of the way through this. We'll also take, you getting notifications as well as just telling people in general about the channel. This video brought to you by DeadSoxy, our favorite place. I've already lined up, fellas, some DeadSoxy Christmas gifts this year. I would advise everybody else. They just finished their buy one, get one free promotion that they had for Cyber Monday going back to Black Friday. But go check out the website. They will have deals. Use that promo code Orangebloods. I think that's the right code. If not, I'll get that double checked. And make sure I correct it. But yeah, go check out DeadSoxy. Great gripping socks that don't come off your feet. They're beautiful. They come well packaged. It really is, as far as socks go, about as 5-star as it gets. And if you're a Longhorn fan, they have Longhorn inspired socks that will warm your heart and inspire you, fellas.
And also, Catch. I finally became an insider. A DeadSoxy insider.
You did.
I signed up for their text alerts. Yeah, man. I'm gonna be the first one alerted when DeadSoxy has new products. Man, they have me hooked.
You've gone from the bastard who wasn't getting socks
to now you're
an absolute DeadSoxy insider.
Yeah, the favorite son now. Yeah,
it's, you know what? Life can change just like that. Boom. There you go. Which is kind of a segue into what this week has been like on the world of Orangebloods, on our videos. There's a lot of portal discussion, even though the portal doesn't even officially open until December 5th. That's when guys can officially enter the portal. We've seen 7 Longhorn players this week announce their intentions of going into the portal. There could be more. I would expect there to be more, which is kind of wild when you think about the normal average attrition for the Longhorns over the course of the last 20 years has been a little over double digits. To almost hit double digits in a day makes me think there's going to be a really big turnover in this football program again for the second year in a row. Jason, I'll come to you first. Nothing really specific other than kind of where your head is this week. We're getting closer to both portal date and National Signing Day, and it kind of feels like they're kind of intertwined now, that there's just going to be a whole bunch of stuff that's about to happen.
Yeah, where is my head at? I don't know. It's kind of spinning this week. And you're right that they are intertwined. You know, it's funny you say that. I talked to the coach for this kid, Rylan Kennedy, the guy that Texas just offered. I got to clarify, he's a high school player, not a portal player. They offered him after the game on Friday, and I was talking to his coach, and we got a big article on Orangebloods. You can go check it out there. It's a really interesting story. I was really had a fun conversation with his coach. This is a kid who played high school or played Pee Wee football, quit in middle school, played basketball, came out his senior year and said, I'm going to try football again. And now he's got offers from Texas and USC and Washington and Cal, and all this has happened literally in the month of November. Well, anyway, it's all happened so quickly. I asked his coach, is he going to sign in December? Because, this kid's just starting to get recruited. This is crazy. And he goes, I don't know. That's a good question, because he wants, he kind of wants to wait till February, but with the portal, he might miss his spot if he's thinking, hey, I want to go to Texas or USC or Cal, wherever. If they fill up at the portal, then you're screwed. So they are very much intertwined. Tuesday was kind of a madness day. We had, what you said, 7. Seriously, I think they all came out within like an hour or two, right? It was pretty wild. Every time we're on Slack talking and just bing, 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 new guys coming up, new names entering the portal from other schools that Texas is going to be interested in. And I've said it to you, Catch. I think any wide receiver worth his salt, Texas will probably go after. Same with defensive linemen, same with linebacker. So, it's not going to be a big surprise if there's a good receiver out there. Oh, Texas is interested. Well, of course they are. They're going to need receiver help and depth. But, it's a lot to take in from a recruiting perspective. Portal that guys are leaving, portal guys that Texas might try to recruit. So, as I kind of mentioned to you, like I need to talk to the whole staff and like all hands on deck because it's almost too much for one person to, or even two or three of us to track down. It's a lot going on, and like the portal window opens on Monday. When does it actually close? Do you remember? Like when do they have to? They have
It's like a 45-day window, I believe.
45. Okay, so about 6 weeks to make their decisions. That'll take us to mid-January. So, it'll be a hectic 6 weeks between that, the early signing period. Then we kind of roll over toward the second signing period. But whole different world, man. It's so weird. Like, I guess I'm just no shock here, but I'm kind of an idiot because every year the portal thing kind of catches me by surprise. I'm so focused on recruiting stuff and, of course, team stuff to some degree and games. And then all of a sudden the portal thing hits and it's like, it's not like a gradual buildup. It's like, bam, here comes all this portal news. I'm like, oh, crap, I wasn't quite prepared for this on a Tuesday morning. So got to wrap my head around it. It's a whole new world of college football.
I'm glad Alex is the one that dropped off because, Anwar, I was coming to you next. One of the things – so, he mentioned it that it feels like any wide receiver that's in the portal is a guy that Texas could be interested in. I really hadn't noticed. We've had this conversation about the wide receiver position all year long. The number 3 wide receiver never really became a thing after Isaiah Nayor gets hurt. We've had a lot of Xavier Worthy conversations. So there's been wide receiver conversation. But one of the things I hadn't noted until Blake updated the scholarship board this weekend is that Texas only has 8 wide receivers on campus right now, including Whittington, Nayor, Worthy, Hall, Brennan Thompson, Savion Red, Jaden Alexis, Casey Kane. They've got 2 guys in Ryan Niblett and Jonte Cook who will sign, and they're still going after other high school wide receivers. But it feels like that is the position that Texas conceivably could completely remake in this offseason, that there may be no shortage of guys they try to go after and things they might want to do.
Yeah, well, but that would be, at least the second straight year where they're really going heavy into the wide receiver realm because they did that, last season. Obviously with Nayor, they did that with Milton. And am I missing anyone else that they
Ajay Hall.
Ajay Hall, rather. Yeah, so it'd be 3 that they did last year. I knew I was missing one guy.
God, they went 0 for 3.
Well,
none of those guys. I mean, Nayor gets hurt, but none of those guys helped.
Milton made one game changing play.
Still lost though.
Yeah, they still lost. It was a great play. Yeah.
So to your point, Catch, it's like, they're going after wide receivers, but this would be the second straight year that we would probably see them going after wide receivers. And I think that's the trend, and I think that's the thing you have to expect. And of course, that would make the most sense in the world when you have Steve Sarkisian, who's an offensive-minded coach. Wouldn't that be, of course, the number one thing that you think of is how can I get the offense better? As opposed to, and it's not to say he won't at some point address defensive things, but we're hearing mostly offensive players, specifically wide receivers, more so than any other position or a lot of other positions right now. So it's not a really surprise, Catch, if I base it off of last season. But to your point, it's just a matter of hitting on those guys that you're going to have the impact guys, especially with the whole Xavier Worthy situation up in the air.
Alex, you've come up for air, right? You've finished your last film review.
Dishes are done,
not including the bowl game, but this allows you to wrap up the season. I mean,
I just knowing that it's all over with because the thing is, it's like we haven't always had a bowl game since I've been doing this since 2013. There have been years where we haven't had a bowl game. And so, like, a lot of what the deep dig does is it compares things to historically what we're used to seeing, and that's what's cool about it. You can kind of look year to year and see how players are producing as opposed to previous years, and so you can't throw the bowl game in with it because then it wouldn't be apples to apples, right? But so the bowl game's just one game. It's a one off in the middle of everything, man. Getting done with the actual season, that's what feels like That's what it feels like, man. It feels good to be done. It feels good to be done.
Well, I want to ask you this question with regard to the portal. Anybody from the 7 that left cause you to flinch at all? Did you have high hopes that any of those guys could be a significant 2023 or 2024 contributor?
I don't have a memorized. Okay, so we have Carrick.
Hudson Card.
Okay, I mean, you don't love to lose Hudson Card, but I mean, what else are you going to do, right? That doesn't
Something
feel like,
had to give.
Yeah. There was Carrick, which to me,
I go through the list for you, Alex.
Okay.
I have it in front of me. It's Troy O'Meary. I'll say Hudson Card. Troy O'Meary.
All right. So with O'Meary, I think that the situation with him is like that guy just needs a fresh start. He needs a fresh start. He needs to go in somewhere and blast onto campus the way he did when he was a freshman. I feel like his time here has just gotten stale, and I can't blame him for it. I think there's still some hope for Troy O'Meary. Carrick, he doesn't want to be a jumbo tight end. He wants to play left tackle, and that ship is way the hell out of the harbor now with Kelvin Banks and the job he did this year.
Yeah, Prince Dorba, DJ Harris.
Prince Dorba, DJ Harris, they both play the same position. They both play that edge. Dorba actually this year, I was surprised when I went back and looked. Dorba this year actually played enough snaps. I think he played over 100 snaps. Let me look.
I think he played 72.
Okay, so it wasn't. Dorba. Hold on. Sorry, I wasn't prepared. Oh yeah, so I have him at 70. Yeah, 71.
How about that? I just pulled that.
Yeah,
Alex, I'm devouring your information to such a degree that on call I can tell you how many snaps he had.
I mean, 71 snaps. He did he's a guy who just didn't do anything. We're talking about causing production once every 15 or so snaps. That just isn't good enough. And the fact of the matter is, if you're not good enough to get Ovi Igwofu off the field, who really he only got production once every 17 snaps.
He played a lot of snaps, though.
He played 657 snaps. And like Dorba's not good enough to cut into that for more than 71. So if he's not good enough to cut in front of him, what's it going to be like next year when Ethan Burke takes over that job, who's actually good? So yeah, I mean, for me, Dorba's not a big loss at all. DJ Harris was behind him. So
JD Coffey.
That one's a little bit more interesting because he actually got playing time down the stretch whenever he was hurt, remember, to start the year. But then down the stretch, JD Coffey over the course of the last so he played 24% of snaps, but that was versus Kansas in the blowout. So he played 0% of snaps in any game except for Kansas. It looks like for some reason he played 10% of snaps versus OU. And then other than that, he only played versus ULM. So, I mean, he'd already been passed up.
He played in 3 blowouts, yeah.
Yep. He'd been passed up by other guys. So.
And what about Jameer Johnson? That would be the last guy.
Oh, I mean, he just needed to go. He was Texas. He was Texas' worst player on defense this last year. Like, let me just tell you about Jameer Johnson. He got production once every once every 150 something snaps. I actually when I color code the production efficiency numbers, I have to take him off of there because it wouldn't be color coded. It would just be him in dark red and everybody else would be blue. So I have to take him off and just manually add him back in. And then the other thing about Jameer Johnson is just how much he was burned. Okay, so he played 154 snaps. He was clearly targeted 12 times. He allowed 6 completions and 4 coverage burns. He allowed a coverage burn once every 38.5 snaps. To give you a comparison about that, Anthony Cook was burned once every 581 snaps. Deshaun Watson was burned once every 273. Ryan Watts every 226. The closest outside corner to him as far as coverage burns, snaps per coverage burn, was Terrence Brooks, who's a true freshman, once every 157 snaps. Jameer Johnson was burned once every 38.5 coverage snaps.
Well, this won't help Jameer Johnson in the transfer portal. Sam Houston State's watching this like, man, we're good. I mean, damn.
I wouldn't have even said this. I wouldn't even brought his name up if I knew that Alex was about to deliver the death blow.
Catch, you know what those guys are, and I don't mean to shit on them even more. Aside from maybe Hudson Card, maybe Troy O'Meary if he gets healthy, and I don't know that that's ever going to happen. those are guys that get you 5-7 and 6-6. I mean, that's what those guys. I mean, again, I'm no disrespect. I hope they all go do well somewhere else and have great careers and whatever, live great lives. But those are not the kind of losses you need to be sweating, and those are not the kind. Texas doesn't need to be bringing in those kinds of guys either.
Coffee. They should take a recruit like Coffee every time, right?
I don't know.
Man, Coffee was just a guy.
Was he? I seem to remember loving Coffee. Was he not highly ranked?
He wasn't a super blue chip recruit.
A couple of these other schools.
I thought he was like 5. He wasn't like a borderline 5-star kind of guy. Okay.
No.
I just have. I'm kind of misremembering then.
Yeah. He's a good player, and listen, I love your covering him as a recruit. He was one of my favorite guys to talk to. So again, I don't like bashing on these dudes because I get to know them quite a bit as recruits. But those are not guys that are going to get you championship level football. Okay, they're not going to get you the Big 12 championship. I mean, it's almost good for Texas to free up those scholarship spots, and hopefully, if things go well, they can replace them via upgrades via the portal or through recruiting. But I mean, those are the type of guys that get you to 5-7, get you to 6-6, and get you a mediocre football program. And Texas needs to be better than that.
Now, can O'Meary be removed from that list though, Jason? Because
I said if he's healthy, I think so. You're right, Anwar. If he gets back to full health, 100% he should be removed. But I don't know that he's ever going to be what we expected him to be.
But he was trending towards being a starter.
Sure,
his freshman year for that injury.
Yeah. Yes,
that was 3 years ago.
That was what 3 seasons ago though. So
yeah.
Right?
It was twice. Right. It was twice that he had just popped off big time in 2 camps, and then for try number 3, it just doesn't seem like some of the juice had been sapped a little bit from what people had seen earlier on.
Tom Herman gets a job somewhere. He might take a flyer on Troy O'Meary.
Right, yeah.
If Tom Herman gets a job somewhere, he'd take a flyer on Hudson Card.
Yeah.
Like that wherever he would go, he would definitely take. You remember, Catch? They love them some Hudson Card.
Yeah, but even though he benched Hudson Card and kind of I don't say dicked him around.
Herman never benched Hudson Card.
No, I guess you're right. No.
Herman had him had him during his redshirt season.
Okay, yeah,
that was a Sam Ellinger year ago.
It was from the Herman coaching staff, if you will, where Anwar. I hate to steal one of your stories, but Anwar was talking to somebody like the day after the Casey Thompson performance in the Alamo Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
And this particular coach, the way Anwar told the story, was like, nothing that guy did last night is impressive. Wait till you see this other guy.
I think Anwar and I talked to the same dude because I was told the exact same thing because they're like, Hudson Card was better than what you saw last night in practice all year, or in the bowl game in practice all year long. And yeah, you're right. I don't know. I get my coaches mixed up, but
it'll be interesting to see where Hudson Card goes. It sounds like he's going to have some options, and it also, there are some other schools that they've got their quarterbacks. If Texas was just out there in the universe and not the school that he's coming from, they've got a depth chart where it doesn't make sense that Hudson Card screw up what has been planned with Ewers and then Manning, and then you've got Murphy there. Other schools have done kind of the same thing. The key for Card is he's got to find a school that needs a quarterback, and a lot of schools will have their quarterback situations planned out in a way that maybe they don't want Hudson Card to break that up. But from what I've been able to gather so far, it sounds like there are some options for him that Anwar probably go better than what we thought the other day when we were talking about there are 3 tiers. There's good Division I major Power 5 schools. There's crap Power 5 schools, which he would do well, I think, stay away from. And then there's that 3rd tier of good non-Power 5 schools, Cincinnati, if you will, UTSA, if they needed somebody other than Frank Harris, now that he would be leaving. Just Onward, it sounds like Hudson Card has options. I'm really fascinated to see where that goes, because just like Texas has with Cam Rising and Casey Thompson, Texas fans will watch those guys after they move on, just to forever do side-by-side comparisons.
Yeah, the thing is, though, Catch, I think for Hudson, I still say, I'll stand on that. I think the Shane Buechele plan of going to an SMU type makes better sense for him, because Cam Rising still had to sit for a few years before he had the opportunity to play. Like you only get, you're going to get a limited opportunity to play right away. And I just think if you go to that SMU kind of tier, kind of school, put up those numbers, look good, have a couple of big wins, you're basically sitting behind Patrick.
You get to go
Mahomes
be a third-string quarterback for the Chiefs. Yeah.
You're sitting behind Patrick Mahomes for the rest of your life, and you're becoming vested and never have to worry about anything in life. Like, to me, the shape for grad transfer, to me, the Shane Buechele, that's the blueprint for you.
Except Jason and I both have heard Notre Dame as a potential destination spot. The Notre Dame guy that I spoke with earlier in the week, the day that he announced, said the thing that really makes Hudson Card really attractive for Notre Dame is that they can take all the grad transfers all day long. It's almost impossible for them, because of trying to transfer credits over, to take underclassmen transfers. So, almost one of the first questions that the Notre Dame guy asked me when we talked the other day about Hudson Card, and quite frankly, he's probably the only reporter of any school that, like, Notre Dame was interested immediately, and it's almost specifically because they can get his ass in school because he's such a good student and would be coming with a degree. They have a much harder – their portal swimming pool is more like a hot tub than – and Texas is like that a little bit, but nowhere near Notre Dame or like a Stanford. Would you go to Notre Dame, Anwar, or is that too big and maybe too much competition?
I mean, I wouldn't advise it. Because it is going to be competitive. Like, I just think you need to go somewhere where they're telling you you're the guy. But now you got a chance to compete. It's your job. Take it.
I'm texting with my buddy Siege that I used to do a DFS show with on Saturdays, and he went to law school. He went to undergrad and law school with Notre Dame, and he's super, super into it. He's on all the message boards, and I'm texting him. I said, "So is it true that Notre Dame might go after Hudson Card in the portal?" And he's like, "I just don't see it." And I go, "Well," and I said, "Well, some of your rivals guys were talking about it," and he goes, "Well, lots of fans want it, but I don't think they know how good Buechner really is. I hope he's healthy for the bowl game so fans realize it was the OL not gelling yet that made him look meh." So that's at least one fan says he doesn't really see it because he thinks that the current quarterback's better than
it wasn't even a rival.
I mean, he is certainly.
You made that part up, Alex.
I don't care. I'm just talking to my friend.
Catch and I had two reporters. I didn't reach out to a Notre Dame guy. Catch, I'm assuming you didn't. My guy called me and is like,
"Yeah, same deal."
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like they reached out to y'all, right? They reached out to you,
but it wasn't a rivals reporter.
There's clearly some smoke there of two reporters.
And also, he's saying that he's saying that he thinks fans want it. So I mean, they're talking about that at least. I mean,
I have no idea.
He's aware of the situation.
I got to be honest. I'm no Notre Dame expert, and I wouldn't even have brought it up except someone reached out to me.
I'm in 100% agreement with Anwar, though. Like, he needs, and listen, I don't know their depth chart, so I'm just going to throw out some random schools, but a school like SMU, a school like Central Florida, a school that's competitive, but just happens to have a wide open depth chart. And I think SMU doesn't. Is Mordecai a senior, right? And that would make a lot of sense. I mean, I had TCU mentioned to me as a possibility if Duggan leaves, but I checked with some TCU people, and I was told, hey, they'll probably stand pat if Duggan leaves with what they have. But I'm very much with Anwar. I think, what Buechele did was perfect, man. He went to a place, it was a competitive football team, a pretty good football team, runs an offense that showcased his skills, and it was a wide open depth chart where he was pretty much assured to start. I mean, you go to Notre Dame, I don't even know what Notre Dame's depth chart is. I mean, Alex, you mentioned the guy. I have no idea who that is, to be honest.
I don't either, yeah.
I'm assuming they probably have pretty good players coming through Notre Dame at the quarterback position. So if I'm Hudson Card, I'm lowering my sights a little bit and going somewhere, Division I program.
Lowering your sights as if that is a thing that any kid or young player has ever done in the history of the world.
Oh, what about this guy? What about Mike Torres saying Trent Dilfer is going after Card for UAB? I mean, here's the thing. You would think that would be that sounds crazy, but doesn't Dilfer know him from all that set?
He would, yeah. From from the opening.
I don't think that would be such a bad. I mean, you would get great quarterback development. A guy that really, really cared about making you look good.
Trent Dilfer, a great quarterback. Hold on now. I know he's a high draft pick. I'm just joking.
I'm telling you, UTSA with them losing Frank Harris would be a guy.
Dude, perfect.
Then you're walking into a 10-win team. You're good, and they've got good receivers. Like UTSA, I know I played a lot of prize picks over the season, and Frank Harris and his receivers were always good ones. Hey, real quick, let's knock out a couple super chat questions. This one's somewhat on topic. Do you think Texas wins the Big 12 any of the seasons had they had Cam Rising at quarterback?
Yes.
I think they'd be in the championship game this year. They wouldn't have made it last year.
Yeah, I think they win it. They're in the championship game probably this year, and probably the favorites to win it, I would think.
I don't know if I still like them better than TCU, but they're in the game for sure, I think.
I'm not sold on TCU. Y'all know that, and Texas almost beat.
The problem is Cam Rising's kind of a dud in big games.
His numbers aren't.
Does he still have that mustache?
No, he's got the crazy hair still a little bit.
Okay.
Crazy hair is in though if you have it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I wish I could have crazy hair. Yeah.
You talk about prize picks, Catch. I think I was trying to do the more on Cam Rising a lot. He was always on the less more than not. So I don't know. It's the previous staff wanted Cam, to stay, and that was kind of a goal of theirs. It's a good question. To your point, Catch. Maybe this season, this year, I don't know about the other years. I don't know. I don't think he's better than Sam.
Cam Rising is kind of a Dylan Gabriel. He was their big game of the season this year was against Oregon.
It's terrible. I'm looking at it.
It's terrible in that game.
Yeah.
0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
He was pretty average in a loss against UCLA. Pretty decent against, not great, but pretty good against USC. But USC's awful on defense.
Fantastic against SUU. Whoever is that? Southern Utah. Who the hell is that? Southern Utah. He was great against Southern Utah.
But then he was bad against Florida. So, and I remember that he had an interception in that game that almost, I think, cost them the game very early this season. But even if you look at this year, probably their 4 toughest games, he didn't play that well. So I don't know. I don't know that if he's better than Quinn Ewers because he's older than Quinn Ewers. He gets them into the championship game, and it's like a coin flip this weekend, right? You wouldn't automatically assume Texas wins because they have Cam Rising, but it'd be a step up in quarterback play. There's no question about that.
I mean, the real question would have been to me, question. Not to say that RC, you didn't have a real question. An interesting question would have been if Casey Thompson had stayed around and had better offensive line protection. Would there have been a difference as far as the outcomes are concerned?
I think they probably play for a Big 12 championship onward.
I'd be buying Alex lunch instead of Alex.
That sounds like a good quarterback to me.
No, it just means that the quarterback he'd be replacing had a 131 quarterback rating for the season, and a whole lot of things look good when that's the comparison. But I appreciate that, Alex. The difference is Dustin, who I've been meaning to bring back onto I asked him once way early in the season, hey, come on the Modcast for just a little bit. We need to settle the bet. So I'll see if I can get Dustin on in the next couple of weeks. And
you need to do it before baseball starts. I
know.
Or maybe do it once baseball starts, dude. We'll get some baseball talk up on here. Who knows?
Just want some bets for one day.
Exactly.
David says, if X and Witt return, does that affect the potential wide receiver signees in this class?
I don't think so. Do you?
I think they're going after wide receivers no matter what. Yeah. And I don't think that Jordan Whittington returning automatically means that he gets the same snap threshold that he did a year ago. I think that in an ideal world, they want to improve on the production in that spot. And I think that, if X comes back, I think Anwar, they're still hoping to portal him and some teammates that raise the bar. Like I just don't expect them. I think they're going to bring in at least 3, one more high school kid and 2 more portal guys. And even that only gives them 13 if Whittington comes back. But look, one of those is Isaiah Nayor. You don't really know what you're getting in a player coming off of an injury rebuild. You've got a Jai Hall. Who the hell knows, right? I mean, I don't. You've got Brennan Thompson, Savion Red, Jaden Alexis, Casey Kane. I mean, there's still some dead weight, I think, on that wide receiver roster that could come off. It just wouldn't shock me if they went out and brought in 5 more wide receivers.
I mean, they should. I mean, look, at the end of the day, so what you want to say about Xavier? I think, Catch, you brought this up as a couple of shows. Xavier does a hard thing, which he gets open, right? And so we know out of all the guys on this roster right now, we know the one guy who can get open routinely. So, to me, you go after some guys, you bring in some guys, but you need more guys who can get open at the end of the day, whether Xavier is here or not. You got to have more people that could do things. It can't just Jatavian Sanders does a good, very good job at the tight end position. But they need more guys. You need more burners. You need guys who can get separation. And so you need more guys like, who can do what Xavier does, which is get open. And so now I don't think them returning has anything to do with it. Will affect it. And don't forget, Catch, Sarkisian just recently said, when he started talking about the danger of the transfer portal, he started saying, like, yeah, some of these guys come in here and they think they're going to play right away. And, it just doesn't happen for them. Sarkisian has signed guys at positions, linebacker, for instance, and those guys really haven't played much. So I don't think it will affect anything that they do.
Alex, if I say Casey Kane and Jaden Alexis, you think because those guys are only going to be sophomores next year. They're not old guys, but we've seen Casey Kane start and play. Haven't seen a ton of Jaden Alexis. Do you have hope that those guys could eventually become important contributors to a Texas passing offense next year, the year after that, like ever?
Nope.
So at some point, I mean, we're in this weird place now, Jason. It feels like it used to be so taboo to even whisper a guy's name, right? Like, oh, it's insulting to the guy if you're talking about him as a transfer guy when maybe he doesn't want to. And it just feels like now we're in this weird spot where anything goes. I had somebody yesterday jokingly asking me about one of the offensive linemen and saying that guy probably doesn't want to transfer because he's getting $50,000 a year and he's not going to get that anywhere else. They may have to drag him into the portal if they ever want him to leave. It's just weird the way we talk about roster construction now in the world of college football. Things that I would have felt awful about 5 years ago and told Alex, don't ever do that because they'll get mad at you.
I think Catch made me like tweet out an apology and shit for this. And like now he's just talking about it out in the open. Like just something.
Yeah, but you guys are getting paid now.
Yeah, I know.
I
get it. And hey, here's the other thing. It's like when I say that Casey Kane can't, I mean, he contributed this year, right? But it wasn't for a lack of them trying not to get other guys in. It's just, I mean, toward the end of the year, you can look on the deep dig and look at the personnel groupings by the year, and you saw towards the end, man, how much they went more to 2 tight end personnel because they didn't like a third wide receiver. You had 2 guys at 89% of the snaps in Jordan Whittington, 82% of the snaps in Xavier Worthy. The third highest snap percentage was Casey Kane down at 27.26% of snaps. Then you had him and Tariq Milton. Tariq Milton was at 17%, Savion Red at 8%, Brennan Thompson at 6%. I mean, I can't believe Jaden Alexis only played 3 snaps. That was as many snaps as something called a Paxton Anderson.
Yeah,
Paxton Anderson. I mean, Gabe Solser had what?
Oh, shit.
Gabe Solser had 9 times as many snaps as Jaden Alexis. Like, it's just to me. Look, I've said this in Slack, but at what and there was at what point do you say, like, well, Brennan Marion, like, what do you where was the development this year for Brennan Thompson or for Savion Red or for Milton or for Ajay Hall or just any of these? I mean, it feels like at that press conference, there was definitely Steve Sarkisian saying these things about, Kirk Bowl said, what things were you most excited about? And what were the biggest disappointments, right? It was a good question. And he said, one of the disappointments he said was like, yeah, there's that third wide receiver too. It's like, there's nobody that can, I mean, that was basically saying, like, kind of to those guys, it's telling them what these snap counts down the stretch, whatever Casey Kane at the beginning of the season, 51% of snaps versus Alabama, 45 versus UTSA, 43 versus West Virginia, 35 versus, 43 versus Tech, 35 versus West Virginia, 26 versus Iowa State. Are you guys recognizing a trend here? 22 versus Oklahoma State, 19 versus Kansas State, 6 versus TCU, then back up to 17% versus Kansas, then 4.76% of snaps this very last game. It's a constant, like, he's telling you what that line should be telling you, or the 6% of snaps for Brennan Thompson should be telling you, or the 7% of snaps for Savion Red should be telling you. None of these guys stepped up, and they weren't developed well. Like, there wasn't another wide receiver on this team besides those two.
Like, you asked about the young guys real quick, and they're freshmen. I get it. Redshirt freshman. I think Casey Kane, even Savion Red, and the kid from Florida, I'm just drawing a blank, Jaden Alexis, who's been injured, so I give him a little bit. But he's been injured for 2 years, and to steal what Darryl Royal said, like, hey, if they're going to bite, they'll bite as a pup. I mean, I get it, they're freshmen, but are they going to make that significant of strides from what we saw this year to next year or 2 years from now? Probably not, man. I mean, you can kind of tell their freshman year which guys are going to be really, really good and, which guys aren't. So it would take a lot of development for those guys to be major contributors. I give Brennan Thompson a little bit of a pass because he's still really young and true freshman.
Small,
and he's got tremendous athleticism. But, a guy like, Jaden Alexis, a guy like Casey Kane, who's been in the program a couple of years, and Alexis has been hurt, I know, but they just haven't shown enough so far to make you think that they're going to be impact players at any point in their career.
Anwar, I was about to segue into something, and I can't remember what the hell it was. So,
hey, by the way, when you talk about Brennan Thompson, didn't he play in like 5 games this year?
He played like 6. He
on
cleared
offense,
the freshman threshold.
I can tell you, on offense, he played versus Kansas. He played versus TCU. He played versus K-State. He played versus OSU. He played versus Iowa State. He played versus OU, and he played versus ULM.
Okay, 7. All right. So I was just wondering if he was one of those guys that like barely crossed the threshold where you said to yourself, like, why did he play? I just want to know where he was.
Well, since I can't remember what the hell I was going to ask Anwar before Jason so rudely interrupted, is that what it feels like?
No, because he stopped talking within like a minute or two. And he had talked for another 5 minutes. Then that's what it felt like.
He talked long enough for me to completely forget what the hell I was about to say to you.
That's a very new problem.
Yeah, now I know. Now I know what a taste of. I'll do some Hail Marys or something later on and try to purge myself of this sin. Bill says, by the way, Bill jumping into the super chat days after beating me by almost 100 points in fantasy. Some BS, if you ask me. I don't remember him hitting up the super chat whenever I was putting it on him. But it is Brody's gift time. There's also that going on as well, which probably has as much to do with the super chat as anything. Threads up on Orangebloods' 14th year on OB. We are once again sponsoring 100 plus kids for Christmas. Look for Bill's thread, an annual really good opportunity to do some things for kids who probably aren't like the rest of our kids and having the luxury of having an awesome Christmas. Help Brody's gifts make Christmas a badass time for everybody, or at least some more kids. One more super chat to catch up on. Since Texas is leaving, do you think there was some bias with the lack of penalties on opponents? I read only 2 holding calls for opponents all year. Jason, I know you're real big on the officials constantly screwing Texas. I'll go to you first.
I was Google searching something. Since Texas is leaving, do you think there was some bias with lack of penalties on opponents? I read only 2 holding. First off, I think that 2 holding call was debunked. I think that's bullshit. Secondly, no, I think Texas made a lot of self-inflicted penalties that were very easy to call, false starts and things like that. You know, you could call holding on every single play. I said this whole conspiracy thing, dude, even before Texas was leaving the conference, Orangebloods have thought there's a conspiracy against Texas. I mean, we hear it every single game for 20 years. Officiating in the Big 12 sucks. It is what it is. You know, I mean, yeah, there was an inordinate amount of penalties, Texas against Baylor. But you know what? Texas shot itself in the foot with false starts. It wasn't like they were kind of judgment. It's not like Baylor got called for a lot of holding penalties either, or Texas did. I mean, it was false starts. It was penalties that you have to call, intentional grounding. I mean, Texas made a lot of dumb penalties that are going to get called, and they're not judgment calls. They're pretty yes or no calls. I don't think it's some conspiracy. I think the Big 12 officiating sucks. I think it has for a long time, and people only remember the calls that go against them. They don't remember the questionable calls that maybe go in Texas's favor. Would I say that the officiating was more against Texas than for Texas this year? Yeah, probably would. Maybe 60-40 overall. But it's not a conspiracy theory. There's no big master plan to screw over Texas because we're leaving the Big 12. It's just silly.
Anybody want to go swing the other way and go completely in deep for Texas is screwed by the Big 12 constantly? Everybody's
always screwed by the Big 12, especially that crew. You know? I just think that the Big 12 is no good, man. The Big 12 is how can the officials in the Big 12 always just be so bad? I guess they're not as bad. You know, when Texas has to get those Pac-12 crews is when I get really tilted. But so it could be worse. It could be worse.
It feels like every conference thinks their officials suck.
When they go to the SEC, it's going to be Texas is the new team in town. They hate them. They're getting screwed by the SEC. It'll be something new. You know it will be, man. So
the Big 12 they really are awful. Like I think the big point is you have to assume that in every game there's just going to be bad officiating. They're never going to call holding on anybody. There's going to be a couple of questionable, like, where did those penalties come from? And they could go against anybody. Texas, I think Jason's right. On war, one of the things that bothers me about Sarkisian, it kind of bothered me about Herman's teams too. Like, sometimes this sloppiness. How many times can you jump off sides in a game? And in close games, it can't be like, hey, we had 4 offside penalties today because our linemen can't wait for the snap to go. This is still an area I think Steve Sarkisian teams can get better in. I think Texas was the most penalized team in the Big 12, but so much of that is self-inflicted.
Well, the thing is, so there's a 2-parter to that catch, which is, can you allege that there's some sort of bias against Texas? Like, yeah, I'll buy that. I mean, when you have one crew that works 2 games and calls 1 penalty, against the opposing team, it's a little suspect. Like it's a little suspect. So, I think it's fair to wonder, aloud, what is this situation about, and what are these things about? I know Texas has kind of looked into a couple of things behind the scenes, and they send reviews. And I did talk to someone after one of the games, and they did. A couple of times they have received some apologies, this season, but that's not public. That's just private, and there's nothing you can really do, about that. The other part of it, though, Catch, is when we look at the penalties that Texas has committed, there aren't many times, Catch, that you could go and say, nah, that didn't happen. It happened. Like those penalties were real. The only thing that we're questioning is, well, what about the other team, right? It's kind of like, when someone gets caught doing something and they're like, yeah, but what about that person? It's like when you get a speeding ticket, you're like, yeah, but how come you didn't catch everybody else that was speeding? It's like the cops like, I don't care, I caught you. That's all that matters. That's what Texas are doing. They're saying to themselves, okay, yeah, we're getting penalized, we're getting tickets. What about the other folks? So, at the end of the day,
I mean, Texas only had 5 penalties for 19 yards against Baylor. It's not like there was some huge discrepancy, and they were all legitimate calls. Alabama had 15 penalties against Texas. Yeah, Texas always remembers there was a hold, right? Was the hold at the end of the hold? Yes, on the run by their quarterback. Yeah, but they got 15 penalties called against them. A lot of them that were huge game-changing penalties. I mean, man.
Well, Jason, the thing is, like, really what we're talking about is holding calls, because when you think about all of the other calls that take place in college football, pass interference is face masks, procedural penalties, like 12 men on the field. I mean, these are all things that when they happen, there aren't many times where I'm like, man, they're just not calling pass interference on the other team at all, right? Like
Alabama against Texas. I mean, Texas fans were saying that they weren't calling interference. I mean, interference is a bit subjective. Holding is subjective. Most of the other ones, yes, they're pretty cut and dried. Either it's a penalty or not a penalty.
I just think people in general, fans don't understand holding in the Big 12, because if all you're looking for is the other team grabbing you, and you don't ever care about watching your guys holding the other team at all, you're only looking at dudes holding your guys. Oh, yeah. You're going to think that the conference doesn't give you anything.
Oh, Texas offensive linemen hold much more than they're called for. I can tell you that.
How many holding calls in Big 12 games, not non-conference, where
if they're not holding, Alex, and if all these other teams are holding and get away with it, then that's a problem for the Texas coaches, that they're not doing the same thing. If they're not, but they are. But
how many holding calls did Texas have
on the season? I don't. I could. It would take me a minute to look up. I can look it up.
You're supposed to have that on call.
I'll need to. I can tell you how many penalties total. I can't tell you how many holding calls.
No, it's okay. I won't do that to you, because I actually want to go to another super chat question. This one's pretty good, and it's pretty good whether or not it's asked by Barry or not. But Barry jumps into the chat. What's up, fellas? What's up, Barry? Let's go individually. What's our forecast on the Sorrell kid's ceiling? I like how he said that. The Sorrell kid, who, by the way, got screwed.
Yeah, I forgot his first name, but the Sorrell kid, whatever.
Yeah. The kid that got screwed yesterday in the all Big 12 teams by getting honorable mention and not, sneaking into. I thought a second team all Big 12 spot would have been a really good place for him. What's our forecast on his ceiling? He's got 2 years to go. Who wants to go first?
I'll say different kind of player, but maybe he's like a little bit of a skinnier Taquan Graham would be his ceiling. Skinnier, more slender version of Taquan Graham. About that level of impact.
I'm going to go a little bit above you. Go ahead, Anwar.
I was going to say that's a 5th round pick, if I remember correctly, because Taquan was like a 5th rounder.
Yeah.
Senior bowler, early day 2 pick. I think that's probably his ceiling. I think that that's a good ceiling. I mean, we're talking about a guy that's going to be
You said early day 2?
I'm sorry, early day 3 pick. That's a good ceiling, man. That's a guy that's going to go on to be a millionaire if he hits his ceiling. I mean,
I think he's more Charles Omenihu than, although it's not apple to apple, but Charles was a double-digit sack guy who, at the NFL level, is kind of a tweener edge guy. Like he can rush the passer, but he's gotten big too. So he's a big dude that can play in like a 3-man front, not really a 4-3 guy. And I mean, he's a good player. He's a good player in San Francisco. I think that Barron's a guy that, well, Barry, you need to tell us, is Barron playing one more season or 2? Because I think in the right situation, he could be a double-digit per year sack guy. At his best this season, he was unblockable at times. There were other games where he was a lot more anonymous. So I think here's his career trajectory at this point. Last year, he proved that he could play. This year, he proved that at his best, he can play very well. I think if we're talking about Barron Sorrell next year being more consistent in terms of week in and week out, not necessarily hitting his highest high points, but not being, anonymous in a few games, then I think his upside, he could be a first team all Big 12 type of player.
I think absolutely could. I'm looking. I don't know why I thought he redshirted. He was a true freshman last year.
Yeah.
And 7 tackles, 0 sacks. This year, you talk about a pretty good jump. 41 tackles, 5.5 sacks. There's no reason to think if he continues to progress and put in the work, he can't be a double-digit sack guy, which makes him an absolute first team.
7.5 led the league this year. So he was not far off from the lead in the Big 12 in sacks. And again,
I'll go as far as to say I'll be a little surprised if he doesn't become a first team all Big 12 player at some point.
The question is, can Barron be an All-American? And I think the jury's out on that. But if you're the best defensive end in the Big 12,
you're going to be in the conversation. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think
if you get to that level, you can go on day 2. I mean, if you're projected to be like Charles has been in the NFL, which has been a player who's good enough to where he was actually traded for draft compensation during his first contract, that's a now you're talking about that's giving him a higher ceiling than I would personally give him.
That's a better player than Taquan
Graham was. Because Taquan he doesn't have the length of Charles. I mean, he's not as long. He's built a little differently. So maybe somewhere in the middle of those two guys.
Hey, Dad, what is Barron's true height and weight?
Yeah, you can let us know that. I mean, he's listed at 6'4", 255 or something like that. It's a little bit different than a guy,
6'4", 258 officially, Alex, on the Texas roster.
What is it officially on the site?
6'4", 258 officially on the.
I mean, really, Alex, it's going to come down to when he takes his shoes off. What's a correct height and weight on him? And if he's legit 6'4", and he develops his body a little bit more, and I never look at him as a short guy. It's not like I think they've got him listed at 6'4" and he's 6'1.5". But yeah, he's a guy that could have an intriguing frame and body for NFL teams. He's not done developing physically, and that's always the thing you start to wonder about guys they get. For instance, Moro Ajomo feels like a guy that physically was kind of never really took steps in the second half of his career, that it was always kind of the same guy. And I think Barron,
if we can judge it from last year to this year, not only is it just more playing time, but it's also the fact, I mean, we said last year he got exposed in that Oklahoma game he was starting to come on as a true freshman. Then he got exposed for just a complete lack of core strength in the Oklahoma game. He didn't play as much for the rest of the season. I can remember it like it was yesterday, just like I'm sure Barry Sorrell probably can. And this year he came back. I said, if he can gain some core strength, if he can be stronger at the point of attack, we'll find some of these moves. We've seen flashes out of him, right? And he did. He really did. He came and he did it. If he can make a similar leap forward, I mean, next year I could be underselling him. I certainly could be.
The thing is, he's not quite athletically as freaky as the guy at Kansas State or Tyree Wilson. He's not what is it, Frank? What's his name? The guy who's the conference player of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Big Frank or Tyree Wilson. Those guys are viewed, at least from what I've seen from NFL discussion points.
It's Big Felix. It's Big Felix.
That's right, Felix.
Yeah,
Big Felix, who you fell in love with on the Modcast live.
He wasn't that effective versus Texas, which is credit to the great offensive tackle play that Texas has had this season. But that's what
should we bitch about Kelvin Banks getting screwed on the All Big 12 team?
Before we do that, let me just say I got the answer for you. So Texas offensive line called for 21 total penalties this year. So that's not all the penalties. Those are just from the guys who played offensive line, right? But 21 total penalties. How many of those do you think were holding calls?
Not many. There's a lot of false starts. So.
I'll go
snap infractions. A lot of Anwar, do you have a guess? How many out of 21 were holding?
We're gonna go 10.
I'll go under 8. So 7. Give me 7.
Under all you guys, it was 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. A lot of snap infractions, a lot of false starts, man.
Because the average Texas fan would tell you, they're never calling holding on the other team.
Mm-hmm.
They're always calling it on us.
You'd think there were 3 or 4 a game on Texas, the way Texas fans act.
By the way, you still went over Price is Right rules. You should have went 1, Jason.
Oh, well, hold on. I was doing the reverse Price is Right because believe it or not,
which is wrong.
Nick was going to be my guess, but I was like, wait, I'll just go 1 under catch them to give myself a buffer space. So
you gave yourself no buffer. It had to be exactly 7. I at least had a little bit of wiggle room.
No, we didn't say
6 out of what, Alex?
We're doing a reverse
21.
Okay. I'm going to tweet that out and credit you right now, Alex.
That is definitely a tweet-worthy remark. So let's talk about the all Big 12 team quickly, right? And then we'll wrap things up. We'll get into parting shots. Bijan makes first team. Jatavion makes first team. Demo and Jalen Ford all make first team. Second team is Worthy and then Keandre Coburn. And that's it. Kelvin Banks, not one of the 10 best offensive linemen in the Big 12?
No, he was second team.
What's that?
He was second team.
Kelvin Banks was?
Yes.
Yeah, his second team.
Okay.
Dude, he's going to be he's just going to be such a superstar. Like people, even these idiot voters already realize he needs to be second team all conference. I mean, he's so gone after this.
Alex,
The idiot voters are all coaches.
Coaches.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Times,
I take it back. I'm so tilted
like the SID or some shit. These coaches.
I'm just so tilted by these. I'm so tilted by these media members that always just give it to the. They look at the stats.
I got a hankering that the media all Big 12 team will be a better reflection than the coaches one. So I seriously wonder if all these coaches.
Well, then they're both.
SID, just fill it out for me because.
Well, then they're both trash.
Alex, it was Pro Football Focus that put out a top 3 all Big 12 team, and Kelvin Banks didn't make any of their top 3. But Christian Jones did.
But Christian Jones should. But hey, listen. But hey, who do we blame for that? Who can we go bitch at? We can't. It's some kind of Wizard of Oz behind a grand PFF. It's like who does these grades? Who does these grades? There's zero accountability. Zero. Who is it? Who's the one who does the grades for Texas? I've been trying to find out for years. I know back when they first started, they just paid interns crap like part-time wages. Get some kid that was he was in school, University of Kansas State, some junior in college that was grading these offensive lines, and people are coming at me saying like PFF gives them this. I'm like, who gives them this? Who?
Well, you just told us who. It's a guy in a junior college.
It's so stupid, man.
Well, I'm glad that I was able to get that rant out of you. Texas Live says, with Texas offense doing bad in the second half of games, why don't they mix things up on war with the go-go offense?
Because Sarkisian doesn't want to have the go-go offense. I think Sarkisian – sorry, Texas Live. He kind of crapped on the notion of implementing anything about that offense early on, and he's kind of stayed true to that. That has nothing to do with him and what he wants to accomplish.
Kind of as simple as that. Like at the end of the day, Onward just outlined it. I hope that was a good answer for you. Let's just go. Anything else we're not discussing? Jason, Anthony Hill, real quick. When's that kid get announcing?
We've heard that rumor how many times it's going to be this week, or it's going to be when he visited for the TCU game. I think it was the TCU game. Oh, he's going to commit before the game. And we all heard that from like 5 or 6 different independent sources. So, and then it's going to be next week, and then it's going to be this week. And I've always kind of thought like, just in kind of communicating with people close to Anthony, that he's probably going to take his time a little bit. And I think it'll be closer to signing day in December. So listen, does that mean he doesn't wake up tomorrow and say, you know what, this is where I want to be? Not necessarily, but I think it'll be close to signing day. So I still think we've got 2, maybe 3 weeks there. People are asking about A&M, and there's suddenly some new confidence in A&M, and just after they beat LSU, and I'm like, maybe I get it, but to me, it's very rare. We all know it, that a kid decommits and then recommits to the same school, especially so late in the process. The big story to me I'm watching, is he going to show up anywhere in the next 3 weeks? It's dead period right now. It actually lifts tomorrow, but is he going to try to squeeze in a trip to Alabama or Ohio State? Is he going to come back to Austin on the 17th when Texas is having a huge number of their committed guys and their recruiting targets? I'm not saying he is, because I haven't heard he is. And it's too early for me to ask, because I know if I ask right now, they'll be like, hey, we don't have any plans for that weekend yet. But I'll be checking in, and it wouldn't shock me at all if he comes in that weekend when Texas has a bunch of guys in on December 17th. So to answer your question, Catch, every time I ask, it's like no firm day. We don't have, just kind of figuring out day by day. But I think it's going to be closer to signing day, which is the first day of signing day is December 21st.
I think the same thing. My guys continuously tell me closer to signing day than December 1st. So if, the middle of that is the 10th, right? Then you start getting towards somewhere between the 10th and the 21st. And I think you're right, Jason. It'll be interesting to see on that.
You'll take the 11th, Catch. I'm taking the 12th. Is that how that works? I don't know.
No, I haven't taken anything yet. But thank you for letting me know where you're headed with that.
I'm trying to get my Price is Right thing. I'm taking one over whatever you take.
Well, I'm thinking of. I think it's going to be. If I had to guess, somewhere between the 19th and the 21st would probably be where.
I totally agree. And the 21st wouldn't surprise me if it was a signing day announcement, like on ESPN or something. Wouldn't shock me one bit.
Yeah, I mean, he and like David Hicks are the only two, and I guess Toviano, right? Like you've got arguably the top 3 prospects in the state that could still, 2 of them are uncommitted and 1 could flip his commit. But then everything after that is pretty well taken care of. There's not a lot of, I mean, I guess there are some guys that you have to keep an eye on. Maybe they could flip. You did the Samaje Burrell, and he could take a couple of visits when it's all said and done. But
he's taking a couple of visits, but yeah.
I don't get that. But
I don't either, Alex.
He's got one lined up to Houston already, and he's working on setting with Baylor.
Which just makes all the sense in the world, right? I mean,
he and his family was planning to talk to Texas this week, so maybe they crush that stuff. But he literally has the Houston one on the books. So.
It makes me think that he thinks they're getting Anthony Hill.
Yeah.
And if they don't, he's cool. He stays. If they do, hello, one of these other schools, because he feels like he's boxed out by a 5-star. And that makes the most sense.
I think you're probably onto something. Yeah.
See that? Conventional thinking sometimes. There's a reason why it's conventional. Let's get into parting shots. Mr. Richardson, I'll let you go first today.
So during the Modcast, I text Dustin and I wanted to know ask him about the bet. And Catch, you're not going to like this, because Dustin responds with, well, isn't he coming back to Nebraska for another year? And I said, yeah. And he's like, I said, does it mean we have to wait? And he goes, yes. It's like a futures bet in Vegas.
No. The bet was by his junior.
Hey, listen.
The bet was by his junior year he would be a good quarterback.
Well, here's the thing. If that's the case,
year, couldn't have even counted.
He did put in parentheses, but if you picked today, Jason would win.
Then I win, because the bet was by his junior year. He would be
no. I like the whole thing about the whole futures bet.
We've milked this damn thing for 5 years now.
I mean, Catch, at this point, they should split it down the middle and just take us out to eat.
Oh, bullshit! No way.
No way, man.
Why am I conceding here? I'm the winner. What we have to do is one more time get the audio. Blake, that's what we'll do next week. If there's finality or not, Blake, what we've got to do is find the video.
It's on YouTube somewhere.
No, I know. We'll find the video.
Yeah, man, Nash already put it up somewhere. Maybe Nash can put it up. Can link one of us to it, because Nash already did that.
The goal will be to play it next week. in its entirety so we can hear it one more time what officially the bet was?
Yes.
We know what the answer is if it has to be decided today. If there's an out in the verbiage, then Alex could still have another year. Because the thing is, we literally said if Casey Thompson had played quarterback for Texas this year,
they'd be in the Big 12 championship.
Big 12 sucks. There's no good quarterback in the Big 12.
God, Jason, you're right about that. It's kind of crazy how bad the quarterback play was this year.
Yeah.
Dylan Gabriel was easily the second best quarterback in the Big 12.
Yeah, we didn't think it would be great coming into the year, but it was worse than we expected, right?
Anyway, Jason, you got a party shot?
No, I'm sitting here looking for that damn YouTube video of the Casey Thompson right now. Not really. No big recruiting news this weekend for Texas. Although I put on Orangebloods, Parker Livingston, the receiver, might visit this weekend unofficially, but probably going to be next weekend more likely. And then they'll have official visitors, or at least one on the weekend of the 9th. And then the weekend I mentioned earlier on the 16th and 17th is a huge weekend for official visitors, unofficial visitors, getting all their committed guys, including the guys from out of state, are going to be coming in for that weekend. So one last push just a few days before the early signing window. So, Texas is still working on some defensive tackles. I'll have some stuff on that in the war room tonight over on Orangebloods. Still working on a couple of receivers. I'll have some stuff on that. So kind of it's not a huge number of guys who are really following right now, kind of interestingly in recruiting. I mean, the portal's huge. Recruiting, we're more kind of fine-tuned on 5 or 6 guys, but it's getting to be kind of crunch time on those guys with, what is today, the 1st? So 20 days left before the early signing period begins. So we'll have coverage of all that, of course, on orangebloods.com starting in the war room tonight.
Alex?
I just see this stuff on the chat saying, does Brennan Marion interviewing for high coaching jobs impact the 2023 class? Like, I'm just like go offense, all this stuff. I mean, this Brennan Marion stuff. I just a lot of questions about a dude that I'm not even sure how much he did this season for the Texas Longhorns. My parting shot is I'll just say this, man. D-Dig, I'm proud that I just finished the 10th year of that thing, man. Where's the time go? Where's the time go, man? This was crazy, dude. 10 years of that thing. Like, I could have spent that time. I could have spent that time literally like writing a novel. It made me like hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe. I'm watching every play by the Texas offensive line. So yeah, man, just happy to be done with it. Happy to be able to free up my time a little bit to where, like, when I actually write my columns and do my content on the site, now I can actually have more time to engage with the people that comment on it and, think about some different stuff to do. Watch some more recruiting, watch some of these transfer portal guys. It'll be a nice change of pace to be kind of more engaged with the board and what's going on instead of having to just every week just kind of just dive into this stuff for the whole week. And not that I don't love it, man, but it's just like this time of year, I'm always, I'm thankful. And I'm also thankful to people who reached out to me on DMs and stuff like that, saying, good work this year, stuff like that. I definitely appreciate hearing it. Appreciate everybody always reading. I know it can be dry sometimes, and, full of stats and charts and everything, but a lot of work goes into it. Proud of the work that goes into it. And also just this time every year, dude, I'm just so happy that I kind of can get a break from it just for a little while. So that's my parting shot, man.
Alex, you are, and I think we all can appreciate this. You're one of these people who, you do all that work, you all into like the deep dig and stuff like that, and people enjoy it. But then you do something as simplistic as reactions on Monday from a press conference.
Oh, he hates that on War.
Thing that everyone knows you for. Like, that's the thing that everyone's like, I can't wait to see what Alex is going to say. It's
don't
like
even get to catch
trained pianist and watching a pop music.
They want to play who they want to get up there and play fucking chopsticks. It's like, are you kidding me? This thing takes me literally the amount of the press conference where I'm not even thinking critical. I'm just like, as soon as the thing's over, I'm done with this. It takes me 30 minutes. It's like, it's wild. But yeah, man, anyway, so yeah, more like chopsticks and crap content like that coming out of me soon for sure.
Well, both things end at the same time.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
You know?
Yeah, so definitely moving on to recruiting, transfer stuff, and it'll be fun, man. It'll be fun. It'll be a good
We're
change.
putting you on portal duty, man. That's what people want to read about.
Yeah, for sure.
Real quick, Jordan Whittington tweeted 5 minutes ago, when it comes to information about me, I will be the only reliable source. You'll hear it here first, guys. So I guess that means he's thinking about making a decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's literally the only thing people have been trying to figure out about Jordan. Like, for these guys that walked on senior day, are you just gone or are you still thinking about something? What were you going to say, Anwar?
I mean, one that goes. I would imagine that he would be a reliable source because if he tweets it out. But I mean, Jordan. That's what happens when you walk, and people are going to speculate. So that's just.
He's probably getting like his. He probably hasn't even got like his NFL draft grades yet and stuff. So I mean, right? Like how quickly do they get those?
Pretty quick.
Yeah.
They'll get them by the probably now. Yeah, right around now. Like I was gonna say December 1st, but isn't that today? Like right around now.
Where would you project him, Alex, as far as draft?
Day 3 pick.
Back end of day 3?
Drafted?
Yeah, that's what I don't even know what to get when he gets drafted, right?
Oh, I'm baking in the fact that Jay Witt's one of the most crazy athletes I've ever seen, and he would test like that.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
I agree with that.
You think he gets drafted?
I do.
Yeah. He would get drafted. I think. Unless there's something weird with the medicals that kind of give a reason for why he was always hurt. I'm not a doctor. I don't know about that stuff. I just know he'll run really fast and he'll jump really high and he'll be really explosive. And that's the kind of guy that scouts want to see test. So I've actually talked to a scout recently, but it was mainly about the defensive line. He did talk a little bit about some other guys. He didn't bring up Whittington though. So I don't have any inside information about what any scouts might be thinking about him. That's just my own personal assessment, having watched him and just knowing what an athlete he is and knowing what teams generally like.
I mean, it comes down to how he tests.
Yes.
Runs a 4.5.
Yeah, that's not gonna that ain't gonna get much done.
Exactly.
For an injury prone dude.
Runs 4.41.
Well, yeah, that's gonna get something done.
Exactly.
For a big strong dude. And honestly, I think he might be able to run it faster than that.
Well, he thinks he's the fastest guy on the team.
He's fastest. I mean, if you were to ask me what his over under would be for the 40, I would literally say 4.40. I would. I think he's just as likely to run a 4.39 as he is to run a 4.41.
I'll take.
The thing is, it's never showed up on the field.
Well,
you've never seen Jordan Whittington just outrun a defense.
But no, I mean, I've seen it. I can't get that state 7-on-7 stuff from Cuero out of my head. Like I've seen it on a dry ass dirt field. Like, I mean, I've seen a kid run by me with sub 4.4 speed. Now he's a lot bigger now. He's a lot bigger now. He's had some injuries, but man, Whittington's a big, crazy athletic kid. I think he's going to test really well.
Alex, he stayed healthy all year, but then Texas had bad quarterback play, and everybody was kind of impacted by the fact that Texas just didn't have a plus passing offense this year. It's just as simple as that.
Hey, before we sign off, there's one super chat just popped up. You want to put that up, and I'll address it real quick?
Sure.
Sorry, I mean, if you guys are done with that topic, but to be clear, Peyton, he hasn't kept pushing it back. There's never been a set timeline. People have speculated on him committing, but he's never had a timeline. Anthony Hill's never said, I'm going to commit, by December 1st or something. So he hasn't pushed it back. But what you're saying is essentially the fact that he can't come to a decision and it's dragging on. Is that bad for Texas? I don't think it's ideal for Texas. You would have loved to have seen him, if you're a Texas fan, commit at that TCU game as was rumored, or shortly thereafter, or even right after he decommits from A&M, pull a Colton Bosick, obviously, and flip immediately. I still like Texas's position, though. So it's not ideal, but I still would have my money on Texas pretty comfortably right now.
I will say one of my sources on Anthony Hill was telling me back like early September, just be patient. It'll be November, probably closer to Thanksgiving when that kid does something. And then I'd say we hit mid-October, and the same source was like, still probably going to be closer to signing day. I think once that kid makes his decision, he wants to get it over with. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he wants to make a decision and have to deal with what he dealt with when he committed to A&M the first time and was constantly – I think this time they want to do it and it be over with, and then he's an early enrollee, and there's not really a recruiting process left. So –
tend to agree. That's his personality and his family's personality. They don't try to drum up drama. There is drama because he's a 5-star player, but
exactly
they're not into the game. So you might be right. Maybe they just rip the Band-Aid off where there's no time for a lot of BS back and forth afterwards. So.
I think as they're just trying to run the clock out, I think. And they know what they're going to do. I think they just want to keep the circus as calm and like event free as possible. And probably the best way to do that is just sneak it on up the signing day, announce, sign, and it's done forever. That was it. My parting shot was the Jordan Whittington thing, just because I feel like all week long we've been trying to. Even last night, I'm on the phone last night with Sukamel, and I'm like, Jordan Whittington and Junior Engelau, like what's the deal with both of those guys walking on senior day, and yet they're still not. I haven't been able to get anybody who's been anything other than, we'll see. I think
more than I got. I didn't get a single response.
One person this week told me he thought that it would be 50-50, that they'd probably keep one out of the two of those guys, but then he didn't tell me which one he thought they would keep. So what the hell good did that do me? Just kept me in even more suspense. All right, well, look, for myself, Anwar, Jason, Alex, the guys over at DeadSoxy, again, promo code Orangebloods, get 30% off your order right now, which isn't as good as the Black Friday or the Cyber Monday specials, but that's on you for not taking advantage of them when you had the opportunity. Go to DeadSoxy right now, get that 30% off, use that promo code Orangebloods, and get some badass Christmas presents for the Texas fan in your life. They will love the socks, and you won't have to do much. Just put a little wrapping on the box, and when they open it up, it is its own beautiful presentation, just what you're looking for. Until next week, guys, you guys be good to each other. We'll talk.